President Trump wrapped up his trip to France today. It was his first visit to the country since he announced the U.S. exit from the Paris Climate Accord, when he famously said that he was elected to represent the people of Pittsburgh, not Paris. Mark Jacobson is a visiting professor at Georgetown University, former senior advisor to the Secretary of Defense Ash Carter, and a former deputy NATO representative in Afghanistan. And if the last name is familiar, it's because he also happens to be my brother. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Dana.
Trump came into this visit making a lot of critical comments about Emmanuel Macron, specifically about how he was handling terrorism. So after we've seen this whole visit with the two, what's your takeaway?
Sure. I think Macron pulled the counterintuitive move. He flattered Trump with a military parade, with a wonderful dinner at the Eiffel Tower. There was lots of handshaking and hugging and this bromance developing between the two of them. But I think Macron comes away the real winner here. He's able to go back and tell the French people, look, I've gotten Trump to give in a little. He might be willing to discuss the Paris Accords. And Trump said this himself at the news conference. It also makes Macron look like a leader in the EU, in Europe, and it turns out he may have a much warmer relationship than that which Trump has with someone, let's say, like Angela Merkel.
That's great for Macron, but what about for Trump? Does he get anything out of this?
I'm not sure Trump really gets much out of it. If you look at it this way, though, at first, do no harm. Trump really didn't do much to put him in a bad position, like I think he did at the G20 meetings. Trump's gotten away with this without any blunders, without any diplomatic problems. What he didn't do, perhaps, is go far enough in terms of saying that he believes the Russians were interfering in the U.S. elections. But then again, it's Macron that comes out looking like the true diplomat by avoiding questions on U.S. domestic politics that were posed by the reporters at the press conference.
Yeah, at the joint press conference with the French president, President Trump described France as America's first and oldest ally, said a lot of people don't know that. A dig at the UK or a dig at people and what we know about our history?
No, I think it's reflective of the fact that the President of the United States has very little historical literacy. This is something most American kids learn in elementary school. We know the Statue of Liberty was this great gift from the French. He's said this a couple of times, and I think it's more reflective of his own lack of study of U.S. history and understanding of our role in the world, and understanding of how long we've been allies with countries such as France and the United Kingdom.
In that joint press conference, we also obviously heard about Russia because the Russia issue loomed large over this whole visit. What did you make of the response from both presidents in that joint press conference?
Right. As I said, we barely heard about Russia, and I think that's telling. I don't think it's a problem for President Trump in the short term in terms of his relationships with Europe. I think the Europeans are very skeptical right now of President Trump's commitment to European security, although the Europeans, I think, have been placated a bit because of strong language used not only by the Vice President, but by Secretary of Defense Mattis and even Secretary of State Tillerson. The challenge remains that this probably says more about Trump's inability to get over the domestic challenges he's having at home with regards to the overall Russia investigation.
Why didn't we see a tougher response or even more of a response from French President Macron?
I think Macron was being pretty wise here. He knows that the question isn't really about Russian interference in the election. The question is really about the overall problems that the Trump administration is having at home. Now, you could also look at it as another way. Macron maybe wanted to see if Trump, when pushed by the media outside the United States, might be taking a harder line on Russia. But either way, I don't think that anyone but Vladimir Putin got what they wanted out of that sort of tepid response from Trump.
Initially, Team Trump denied that his son had any meetings with Russians during the campaign, and now they're saying it was just opposition research. It's the term we've heard over and over and over again, that everyone's done it. You're a member of the intelligence community. What is your response to that idea that this was just opposition research?
Right. Well, former member of the intelligence community, but
always like an older brother to correct his younger sister. Yes, former member of the intelligence community.
So this doesn't look much like opposition research to me. This isn't looking at candidates' positions, candidates' flubs and flip-flops. What this does look like to me is, as someone who's worked in this field, is a recruitment operation. This is the Russians sussing out vulnerabilities, looking for people with the right access and placement to key leaders, such as the president. And that includes Donald Jr. And Donald Jr. at best was completely naive in taking a meeting that most people who've been around the federal government, have worked around foreign affairs issues, and frankly political campaigns would have said, there's something wrong here, I'm not going to take the meeting. Just look at how easy it was up on Capitol Hill the other day for the FBI nominee to say to members of Congress, after being prodded by Senator Graham, look, if a foreign government approaches you and says, we've got some info that's going to impact the election, call the FBI. That's exactly right. Don't start self-adjudicating and trying to figure out how this might help your campaign. That's absolutely wrong. Whether or not there's criminal activity here, well, let's wait for the Mueller investigation to be completed.
And Mark, before we let you go, I'm just thinking as I'm listening to you talk, you are somebody who is a student of history and you have studied it for so long, and I can personally attest to that. Give me a sense where we are as a country, where we stand right now with President Trump in the rest of the world. Do you remember a time like this? Is there a time you can compare it to this? Because we certainly see more on our own and more on an island than I can recall.
Well, I'm young enough that I can't remember a time like this, but certainly the Watergate years, the Nixon administration years, not just in terms of a presidential scandal, but the world looking at us and saying, what is going on in the United States? You've been a bedrock of democracy, or a bedrock of democratic institutions, of transparency, defenders of ideals such as freedom of expression. You better get your house in order, United States. And I think that's there as well. But I also think we're seeing some echoes of some of the isolationist tendencies in the United States after both the First and Second World Wars. There's concern over things in the U.S. Let's not be involved in the world's problems. But it's a different place. The United States is a world leader and has a role around the world, whether we like it or not. And we better step up to those responsibilities, or the problems won't just be overseas, they'll be at home as well.
Mark Jacobson, thank you. We appreciate the information.
My pleasure.